Hi, everyone. Welcome back to it's a peer-to-peer world virtual conference, Friday afternoon session, the last Friday of the conference. I'm so happy that we can have this session today. I'm very excited about it. Thank you again to all the hosts and sponsors, including Donor Drive, who's a part of this conversation. And feel free to go to the next slide. Had a lot of hosts, a lot of sponsors involved. All of these people made it possible for folks to attend this for free, and that's the way we like it. We try to give some thought leadership back, tell some good stories, share some successes and some pain and some ideas. So I'm really looking forward to this session. Going on to the next slide, usual issue. Again, we have one more session after this about gamification. So please join that one as well. Moving into the next slide, again, you got to have the logistical housekeeping slide, right? If you have any questions at all, as you think of them, please put them in the Q&A. Feel free to chat with the panelists or amongst yourselves in the chat feature as well. And then stick around at the very end when we close down the session. A survey will pop up. We want to hear your feedback about this session, about how we can make the conference better, ideas you have about what we should speak about. And they're going to be doing a raffle. The folks over at Halo are going to be giving out some swag to some lucky winners. And with that, I am going to turn it over to Kelsey.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark. And thank you, DCC crew as well. But yeah, I want to thank everyone for joining the session today, and a huge shout out to Mark, of course, and the Cathexis team for letting us be a part of it. We all know from a nonprofit space, sharing ideas that lead to success are vitally important, and we can all learn from each other. So I appreciate the chance to be able to highlight a donor drive client, which is the Miami Dolphins Foundation, and to talk through what's led to their success from the Dolphins Challenge Cancer event that they have, but then also to talk through how they foresee their game plan being executed, not only from an in-person perspective, but also a hybrid model. Also want to thank you all in advance for your willingness to deal with any football puns, which have already been displayed. And that will take place during this webinar because there's going to be quite a few. So hang tight with us, but it's going to be a fun one. And I'm really excited to talk through it with Javier and Gladys. But before I do, and do like intros and whatnot, we wanted to play a quick video for you all that really gives a quick glimpse into Dolphins Challenge Cancer and the camaraderie that they have been able to display in like such a short video too. So let me get that played for you all, and we'll get started after that.
It's great to see the community come out, players, former players, coaches. They run, they bike, they walk. There's just so many people involved. The more people we can get together to donate, to work together, to fight this battle against cancer, I think we'll have better odds at winning. Well done. Join Team Dolphins. Register today and help us fight this terrible disease.
Awesome. Hopefully you're all able to hear that. Okay. Give me a thumbs up if you can. if you did, good. Awesome. Oh, there we go. And we'll dive into intros now too. So I'm Kelsey Stelman. I work at Donor Drive as a client success advisor, and I'm the host for today's session. So while I might like to think of myself as, a Jimmy Fallon or an Oprah Winfrey, I know I will not do them justice, but our guests today will. So Gladys and Javier, I hope you pull me up into the ranks. But my goal here today and through Donor Drive is just helping organizations like the Dolphins to get comfortable with the platform, but then helping them drive success, and obviously that leads to organizational growth as well. So I will pass it off to Javier and then Gladys so they can give themselves an introduction there too.
Don't worry, Jimmy Fallon has nothing on you. But first off,
appreciate that.
Thanks for the intro, and then definitely thank you all for having us on. My name's Javier Sanchez. I'm with the Miami Dolphins Foundation, and my history goes back in born and raised down here in South Florida, originally in Miami, and from the get-go, not too many of us left around here, but happy to be here. And my background really extends from endurance sports, having been involved with them since the early 2000s, just having participated, run a few of them, and gotten involved more deeper in with them through the charitable components. Worked for a couple of nonprofits, St. Jude Children's Research Hospital being one of them, whom I learned quite a bit from, but also ended up here at the DCC in 2018 as a Director of Development and Partnerships, responsible for essentially the synergies that we make within the community, within our organizations, our board, and our leadership here, just to figure out how can we best leverage our platform to raise more funds to impact those, to help save lives from those impacted by cancer.
Awesome. And I've actually had the pleasure of knowing Javi for about 9 years. And I'm Gladys. I'm the Director of Business and Operations for the foundation in DCC. And like Javier, I've been in the endurance world for about 9 years. So we thoroughly enjoy the event component of it. But I think echoing what Javi says, we're both really passionate about the fundraising and the community aspect that the Dolphins Challenge Cancer brings to South Florida. So that's me.
Back to you.
Oh man, that's a lot of pressure. I shouldn't have set myself up for that. But thank you both. So yeah, I worked with you all for the past, like the better half of, I guess, a year and a half or so, bringing on DCC 11, and then now we're transitioning into DCC 12. So it's been really cool for me and from my perspective to see how you all have really transferred from an in-person strictly event to now doing a hybrid approach, which I know a virtual or hybrid isn't always, what everyone seeks to do, but it's kind of the new norm now. And you all have really embraced it, and you all have exceeded at that from a marketing perspective, and then just how you set up your events in general. But yeah, so it's been great to work with you all. And Javi, I'll pass it to you to further introduce Dolphins Challenge Cancer event itself, how it started and why it stands out from the National Football League or NFL. I don't know why I said National Football League, from a philanthropy standpoint, and why your peer-to-peer component has really been such a sought after event from a larger organization and a structure from the NFL as a whole. So I'll pass it off to you to walk through that a little bit further, if you don't mind.
Definitely. And it starts with, I think, the way that you kicked off the presentation with that video from Coach Flores. It just shows that this cause is taken seriously within the organization. Our leadership, our owner, Mr. Stephen Ross, or our vice chairman, Tom Garfinkel, this has been a priority for the organization every single year. And just to give a little bit of background, it started back in 2010 when the great Jim Mad Dog Mandich actually kicked off the first DCC. And I have there's a photo of him cutting the ribbon there to get the first one started. And he actually had bile duct cancer. And one of the reasons why the event began so successful was because how the organization embraced him, his experience at Sylvester Comprehensive Cancer Center, and just realizing how much the community needed something like this. Back then, it wasn't the same. It wasn't the same time. And the impact that we've made over the past 11 to 12 years really shows the vision of what began back then, to realize that to date, we've raised over $45.5 million. When we come out with
incredible
to turn around and realize that we're serving 300 researchers a year. We're serving several hundreds, if not thousands of individuals are coming through Sylvester's doors, and they're benefiting from treatments and therapies and clinical trials and different things that we've helped fund throughout these years. So to see that growth in partnership is really, it was the vision from the leaders back when in 2010 that we were fortunate enough to kind of inherit. But I do have to say the leadership from the organization and the partnership they've established with Sylvester has just been the heartbeat through it all to ensure the event has evolved. The word virtual didn't exist 11 to 12 years ago, thank God. No, but I say that jokingly because we're inventing virtual now. And I know for a lot of us, we had quite a few of these conversations over the past years saying, how do we make virtual great? And you guys have been a great, Donor Drive has been a great partner with us in this, and just helping us realize like this is what it needed to become. So here we are 11 years later, we're introduced to a pandemic for the first time, and virtual is not just an important factor, but it's a critical factor to the event's success. So that's a brief history in a nutshell. Obviously, I skipped over the most important parts. It's a cycling event. It's a run walk. It's got the virtual components. Started back as a 2-day, 170-mile ride, 100 one day, 70 the next. And now it's evolved to a ride with a century as the pinnacle event, a 5K, and then several 200 corporations participating as teams.
It's phenomenal. All good stuff. Well, we'll head into the meat of the presentation. So thank you, Javi, for sharing that. But yeah, I know we set it up truly to be a game plan for, like a football team. So building a fundraising strategy. I know we give, and, we had the disclaimer that there's going to be a lot of football puns here. But it's no different truly than building a football strategy, a game strategy. So you create those decisive plays where everyone knows what to do in advance for your calls too. But just like in football, you have been adaptive. You've been able to change up the game plan as needed. And you've been able to react to new things that are coming your way, whether it's, a pandemic, or whether it's the innovation that's coming to play, or the technology that you can work with. You all have been embracing that at the forefront. So yeah, we're going to go through a few different plays that your team kind of keeps top of mind. But we'll go ahead and dive in and go through the first play here, or the first the first transition, and that's building a strategy. So when starting a plan for the next season, I feel like a dork when I say this stuff out loud, but I love it. I hope you guys like it too. When starting the plan for the next season of fundraising, how you're approaching your game plan, how you're drawing it up essentially, but then how you're accommodating and trying to marry the virtual aspect versus, in person, and how you're making sure that everyone that's participating is truly being coupled in getting the same experience and getting the same engagement from you all that they would typically have if it was just in person. So I'll kick it off to you all to answer that a little bit further.
And I'll kind of jump in just from like in operations, like kind of marrying the two, and sharing a little bit more about how we've kind of grown to develop our virtual option. So the event itself, I feel like, has always kind of had some sort of like, we know you can't participate and we want you to fundraise from anywhere in the world. But I feel like last year, because of the pandemic, we really had to define the term as it's virtual. So we had to figure out what to do with it. I remember countless phone calls with Javi, wrecking our brain, thinking of like grand ideas to kind of incorporate everyone. We didn't want anyone to feel like left out. So we had crazy ideas from, doing like segmented shows to filming random things. And I feel like we kind of ended on two bigger components that I feel like both incorporated kind of everyone not feeling left out. One of them was kind of filming like a welcome ceremony that could have been for anyone virtual or in person. And the second part of it was actually live streaming our event. So both of those, I feel like we felt would kind of marry the two and make you almost feel like, okay, I feel like I can support anyone who actually did show up for the event and be included. So it was kind of interesting for us to kind of go through a whole year planning for this virtual component, because we wanted to almost tie it in with like one special day. So this year, I feel like we kind of learned a little bit of like, let's try a couple of different approaches. And I know we're kind of building the play, so we won't share everything right now and like just kind of ideas, but I guess like a sneak preview is we thought long-term, like making it a year-round effort. So we'll kind of talk a little bit further about like our game plan a little bit later on, but I feel like it definitely kind of pushed us to say like, we just have to think of this group as a separate group. They're supporting our cause, they're fundraising, they're, they want to be part of it, but not at a physical event. So I feel like that's all kind of helped us. And just a couple like high level ideas and lessons that we learned to help us like build the strategy for this year. Less is more. We need to adapt quickly to all the changes. and that this virtual group really doesn't have to fit a mold. Like they can actually be a self-sustaining group that supports our event just as anyone would in person. But I guess I'll kind of turn it on to Javi a little bit more from like the fundraising standpoint and how we're kind of targeting that group.
And I kind of like what, not kind of like, I love what Gladys said. And the fact that there was something that was so significant that was within our phone calls, our Zooms, our Teams calls, quitting was never an option. You know, the first thing that we always turned around and talked about was this event needs to raise money. And that was what we put first and foremost as our priorities. We love the fact that there's a cycling component. We love the fact that there was a run, walk, 5K, the corporate team involvement. But we realized that no matter what we did, we had to do it in such a way. And she mentioned something that was key. That was not just a Band-Aid. Every idea that we came to the table with, there was a couple of barometers and it said, will this work for multiple years and future years as of the result of the pandemic as well? Like, in other words, let's not just throw money around because we're a nonprofit like any other. Our event is covered. The operating costs are covered by the organization and the sponsors that support it. We give 100% of every dollar that's raised through that model. What does that mean? That means we have to spend as little as possible to produce as much as possible for fundraising. Mm-hmm. So we were incredibly strict on ourselves, and I compliment her incredibly for just managing such a fluid and responsible budget that allowed us to turn around and say, this presented us with the largest gift we've ever made in our history, because it helped with that. But just going back to it, two things. One is we kept the mission focused, we kept the cause focused. We realized that, you know, cancer affects everyone throughout the world. There's millions and millions of Dolphins fans throughout the world. How do we bridge the two to turn around, give them a platform and welcome them this year, knowing that we're going to need their support to help continue with that trend of raising $5 to $6 million a year through this one peer-to-peer experience. And then let's do it in such a way that no matter what we do this year, and this year meaning 2021, that passed in April, that it sets us for future growth for 2022 and February and so on for 2023. So from our standpoint, it was a lot of reviewing the trends, past and present. You know, we learned a lot from our participants. Over 30,000 donations were coming in. We had several thousand participants a year. We're not a huge event. We only get about 3,000 to 4,000 participants a year. You know, from our background, we were doing events of 20,000 people. This is 3,000 to 4,000 that we're truly garnishing, taking care of, treating them like a philanthropic organization would, and analyzing what the community and local market needs. You know, we saw a boom in cycling. We picked up on that. We're a cycling event. You know, all those things helped us. And then last, technology. This is where Donor Drive comes in. This is where the app comes in. This is where Facebook comes in. This is where technology just really allowed us to help participants raise more money much simpler.
And I want to add something else too that kind of triggered, like, we joined the Donor Drive family right in the midst of a pandemic.
Yes.
So like, our first year with Donor Drive, and not only were we introducing a new platform to, I'd probably say like 30% of participants that return year over year, but we were introducing a new platform. We ourselves were learning a new platform, and we received nothing but compliments on how easy it was to fundraise. And that couldn't have been more of a perfect timing to help us achieve such a great goal.
Our event took place in February under another platform. March, obviously everybody knows history was made with the the official pandemic level of intensity. And I think our onboarding, or whatever you guys call the integration implementation, began in March. So thanks, Kelsey. We appreciate that.
No, it's a lot of kudos to you all for being as dedicated as you have been about embracing a new platform, making it work, and being open to new ideas. So as much as I love, Donor Drive, obviously I'm definitely drinking the apple juice, but it's a lot to you all too, because you all put in the work, you put in the resources, you've put in the effort to make sure that it could come to life for not only you all from an admin standpoint, but also for your participants too. So yes, pandemic and new platform aside, you all have been great about just embracing what you have at your hands and what you can actually kind of come to play with. So kudos. So thank you, but you got to give kudos to yourselves too, Yeah.
All right, let's do number 2. I'm looking for, what is it?
Engaging participants and teams. And we'll dive a little bit into this in a later slide too, but how you're approaching and how you're engaging like now a national fan base, apparently, with the virtual side of things, and how you're engaging participants into upcoming events, current events, anything that can bring them into being, a lifetime supporter for DCC and the Miami Dolphins Foundation in general too.
Yeah. So from our standpoint, again, virtual is still new. And I know it's not a new term, we're all familiar with it, but from our standpoint, we're still reevaluating how can it be better? How can it be cost effective? How can we not spend 72 hours in a warehouse cutting up boxes, slicing up our fingers, mailing stuff, doing fulfillment, things that we ended up doing this past year, just lessons learned. And how can we make it engaging? And I think the one thing that it all comes back to is continuing to focus on our mission and realize that our mission is about raising funds for cancer research. And part of that has to come along with awareness and just letting the cancer community know that we're here for you. The Miami Dolphins organization fundraises specifically for you, for what you're going through, the experience, and for our future, to let them know that if they can channel us as a friend, as a community, our motto is one team, one fight. That's the message that we want to let our community know, because if you join us, if you participate with us, if you donate to us, you're helping that fight to help save lives. So a couple of little things that we did were really just engaging. I know Gladys touched on this a little bit, engaging our community, like digital dedication walls, where you can type in your name, who you fight for, the video, the image, anything like that we can create that synergy, helped us connect with our audiences. But I don't want to underestimate the local impact that our community needed at that specific time. Our corporations needed something to do. They were working from home, they were burnt out, they were doing Zoom conferences, no offense, but they needed some experience. So we just realized that this is what the DCC is going to be. This is going to be their outlet to do something outside, do something beneficial, health, wellness, cardiovascular exercise. From a corporate standpoint, this is the type of social responsibility that organizations are thriving for right now. So we're creating that platform so you can have a very positive experience and do something that makes your team feel great. We put all those things together. Unfortunately, we have a history of doing it for 11 years, or back then 10 years, that people were just waiting for us to say, how can you get us out of our homes? How can you bring us back together? So it was a big challenge for us, but we accepted it very confidently, thanks to what the organization and the stadium had been through throughout the entire pandemic, that really just helped us do it successfully. And the participants, they were the reason why. They were our cancer community. They were the organizations that needed this support more than anyone else.
No, yeah, I think you covered it.
It's a good one. It's perfect. And I will say, and kind of diving in maybe to the next slide a little bit more than I should at the moment, but just your ability to create those impact stories and be able to get those stories from actual participants, even some of you all at Miami Dolphins Foundation, being able to tell your story too has been very impactful. And I know it helps to tell why you want to support an organization like you all, and Sylvester obviously too. So you all have done a fantastic job. So kudos, of course, as always. I probably pump you all too much. I'm filling your heads with too much confidence here. But no, I mean, it's important to share those stories, because that's how you keep people engaged. That's how you keep people heard. And that's how you keep people coming back. So I think the biggest thing for you all will continue to share those stories, can share how people are making an impact. And that's kind of how you harness those relationships and that engagement a little bit further too. So absolute thumbs up for sure. And we'll dive into the third play here, which I'll let you all take a break and you guys can get some water if you need to. But I have to say to you, another kudos situation, but for involving sponsors and corporate teams, one thing you all have always been good at, or at least since I've been working with you, is involving corporate teams and making sure that they're heard and that they're recognized. So what we've seen, obviously, with corporate social responsibility and whatnot, it's very important for not only you all from the charity side of things and the foundation side of things to be heard and recognized, but these brands are, they're saying to their employees, we want to partner with Miami Dolphins Foundation. We want to be involved with them. We believe in their cause. We believe in what they're doing. And you all have truly been able to harness those relationships and put their brands out there. And you've really recognized them as a lot of sponsors don't always get recognized as. So it's great. Like I know I've seen pictures on social media and Twitter, LinkedIn, what have you, where you're going to these sponsors, you're going in person to them to thank them, you're giving them recognition, you're giving them some kind of kudos to be like, hey, like you're supporting us, but just know, like, we want to support you too. Like, we want to make sure that what you're doing is good, and we want to display what you're doing as good to anyone that's in our sphere of influence, and we want to make sure that you are recognized for it. I'm probably talking in circles now because I feel like what you're doing from the sponsorship side of things is spot on to what any organization should be doing. I know I've seen car dealerships that you all have been going to and visiting, and there's the big fat check that's made out to them, which is great, and you're giving them the recognition that a lot of these organizations want, but also they don't always need it. But it's always good to kind of get in their, I'm gonna be a millennial for a second, get in their feels and really hit home and be a driving force for why they're supporting you all, and for you all to be able to take the time and take the effort to be there in person and meet with them is always going to be important. So sorry, I'll let you all speak to that a little bit further if you want to, or maybe articulate it a little bit better.
Really good.
Like, yeah, we're done.
Yeah.
We're like, oh,
Kelsey, you're hired.
We already worked together. We partied together already.
but I do want to add, I feel like we are a pretty small team that kind of works on, and the people behind the scenes for DCC, and I feel like Javi and his team do a really good job at like the like relationship piece of it, which I feel like you said, like they're showing up and making them feel like they're helping us and we're helping them. But I feel like they try to cultivate relationships, which makes it so much easier to like keep sponsors returning and to keep our corporate teams returning, because I feel like we're not even like a quarter of the way to like getting to DCC, and we already have pretty much almost all of our corporate teams returning, which is a big deal. And I feel like
incredible.
It has to do with like the like cultivating that relationship, which is going to keep not only our participants coming back, but sponsors and corporate teams and the people who kind of keep the event living, essentially.
There's and I don't, thank you, Glass, but I take zero credit for this. We inherited something that's actually absolutely phenomenal. There's a stickiness to the event that it's just the corporations want to come back. They naturally see the benefit. And this really comes a lot from the way that the Miami Dolphins as an organization treat partners. This is very much in line with, treating them with the best of experiences, the best of product. The DCC board is made of an incredibly impactful group of South Florida leaders, and it continues to grow. And then Sylvester is so proactively involved in this. As an example, a couple of years ago, we had Jackie Travisano, the COO of University of Miami, who is the educational facility or university associated with Sylvester Comprehensive Cancer Center. That's our beneficiary. So what we're doing, imagine the Miami Dolphins brand and the University of Miami brand coming together to support the cancer community in South Florida. That's just from the leadership level, from the highest of levels. They're just turning around and saying, okay, that's how big this is. That's how serious this is, that you're actually going to see that level of partnership. And then from there, it really just builds on the trust. When we tell the community we're giving 100% of dollars raised to the cause, they turn around and say, hold on a second, but you're not paying for this to turn on the lights or the food or the cookies or the bagels or the beer or the wine or we can keep going. But those are the experiential elements that we end up covering through our partnerships. A big priority for us, and Abby from the team is phenomenal at this, we make it easy for organizations to get involved. Every organization is seeking a meaningful initiative right now. And we make it, we challenge ourselves to say, how easy is it for an HR director to get behind this initiative? How easy is it for a leader within an organization to rally troops up to turn around and say, we're going to raise $50,000 this year. Our average corporate team raises about $50,000. So when you talk about how they're doing it, why they're coming back, these are all elements that we analyze every single year. And we do take great pride in creating these opportunities for them, listening to them and saying, what do you need this coming year? Mm-hmm. We have been in office since April of 2020. Not a lot of our corporations are still working from home, which turns around and tells us, it allows us to gauge that and say, this is how we're structuring and planning our kickoffs. Rather than in person, the way we used to do them, we're doing them over Zoom. Rather than having this, we're doing that. So we're constantly pivoting to make sure that we're increasing the value of their financial commitment. We want to be more cost effective. Rather than hosting call it a banquet hall or a holiday party, come to the DCC, enjoy yourself. It's more cost beneficial for you to come here and do something great for the community and great for the health and wellness of your employees than it is to just go out and spend it at, let's say, a restaurant. No offense to restaurants, I love them too. But that's the model that we've built off of that ultimately trickles down through sponsors and corporate teams.
Yeah. And it's been, I'm sure, I know we've only met on Zoom, but to not be there, maybe to some sponsors being able to be there in person, because I'm sure that both of you and the rest of the DCC team would make an impact in person events. But the fact that you can do it through Zoom and you're able to share your story a little bit further and be able to really articulate that over just a video conference is pretty impactful too. So that's awesome. Thank you. And we can dive into.
It's the fourth quarter now.
We're in the fourth quarter.
Oh no, fourth down.
Yes.
Sorry, we're doing that.
No, we don't make fourth downs. You know,
Oh, gotcha.
This is play number 4.
But I called you out and tell everybody
down.
you're not actually a Miami Dolphins fan. Is that?
I'm not.
You want to confess? We have a confession here, virtually globally. No, I'm just teasing.
I am not. I'm sorry, y'all.
I love it.
You're making me one, though, I will say.
Yep.
Wrong year, but maybe.
Yeah. Maybe next year once we figure all that out. But yeah, so finishing strong, you all obviously were dealt, as everyone was, a very odd hand at the beginning of 2020. And then also through 2021 as well. You shifted the dates for DCC 11. So typically it's, earlier in the year, but we pushed it back a few months. So that wasn't a huge deal, I'm sure. But how did the April event come to play? And also, what's next for Miami Dolphins Foundation and Dolphins Challenge Cancer as 2022 comes about too? I know that's quickly approaching, but yeah, so we'll start with April and how that went and how you all saw it came to life, and then we can dive into the future of the Dolphins.
Yeah, so I can jump in here. So I guess April was kind of tough for us. We had to make a lot of decisions, like very, very last minute, just because we didn't really know if we were going to be able to host an in-person event. But we were able to have a very safe and successful event. It was very much more scaled down than what our DCC has always been. Like, it's always been a celebration of living, survivors, and it's always been something to commemorate months of fundraising. So it was very difficult for us to kind of culminate to one day and we're like, well, it's going to be a really quick party. You're probably not even going to have much time after, but our main priority was safety, and we wanted to make sure everyone felt comfortable amid, we were still kind of in the pandemic, like it was sort of becoming okay to host events, but I feel like what also really, really helped us was that Hard Rock Stadium, where we host the event, they had already pioneered having a few events in the stadium with very strict COVID protocols. And I feel like that kind of paved the way for us to say, like, okay, we can follow suit and we know we can host a successful event. I feel like an added bonus to our situation as well was that our entire event is held outside. So we knew we had a little bit more of that safety component from okay, they're done with their ride, they can come back and we're still outdoors. We had plenty of space on the footprint of this stadium. So we were able to kind of accommodate everyone being 6 feet apart, which feels like, years ago that we were saying that, but everyone was 6 feet apart. And we wanted to make sure, we had more than enough restrooms, like all the nitty gritty items that we had to think about just to make sure every single person that rode or ran or walked in the 5K felt like, what, they enjoyed it. They got out for a day. They did exercise. Yep. They felt safe. And they felt like all of their fundraising and hard work did almost like end up in a big celebration, but it was more like with close family and friends that you had in your small bubble. So I feel like we made it work and it was a success. Like, I feel like people were really happy. We have our teams coming back. So I feel like we did something right to make sure that we were able to kind of gear up for a somewhat sort of normal event next year for DCC 12. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add from
it does feel like it was 6 years ago. Meanwhile, it was really only, 6 months ago.
Yep.
No, I echo the sentiment. We benefit from the Hard Rock Stadium staff and facilities and the fact that they were able to produce so many events throughout the pandemic. And then just being able to be here that day was pretty incredible.
Yeah, so kind of going off of that, I feel like DCC 12 for us, a bigger thing, what I mentioned in early on with the whole virtual component is we definitely knew we had to make some adjustments. Like, we wanted to create this like grand experience. And I feel like we kind of slowly realized that we could almost treat these individuals as their own, almost like division of our participants. Like, we know we can kind of cater to them a little bit differently and we won't spill all our secrets, but from creating like a different fundraising structure to like the benefits that they receive a little bit different than the people who are coming in person, because we realize that we can't recreate an in-person event for these virtual participants. Like they, at this point in time, they're choosing, like, they want to fundraise, they believe in the cause, they're committed, but they just don't want to participate in an in-person event. So,
or they can't make it, or they're in a different country, which is really cool for you all too, is the breadth of, I guess, participants and where they're coming from. So that's kind of cool too.
We have a box right now from somebody that ordered one of our fighter shirts, or One Team One Fight shirts from Australia.
Yep.
So yeah, it's exciting for us.
Remarkable.
Yeah. Like, one of the lessons we learned was like, let's treat these individuals like as a separate group. Like, let's cater to them too, just as we would cater to the group of participants that are going to show up on February 26th. So we've kind of almost like divided it up a little bit, but still maintaining the same brand, the same integrity. And I mean, they're still fundraising for the same cause and the same initiative. So from an in-person perspective, I feel like we're crossing fingers that we can kind of go back to having a really big celebration. Everyone kind of looks forward to getting together with their family and friends and participating in the 5K, or for those who really just strive and join our training rides that are now going to start happening in the fall, that kind of all gear up to riding 100 miles on event day. So we're really excited and actually, planning to have a similar scale event to how it used to be pre-pandemic, and celebrate all these individuals, whether they're survivors or returning for an 11th year, or it's their first year. Like, we want to cater to every single individual and every single participant that's raising funds for Sylvester Comprehensive Cancer Center.
And I think echoing that, one thing that I noticed that Gladys was alluding to as well is it's a campaign. Like, it's a season down here. The second that the heat stops in South Florida, well, it never stops.
Does it stop?
The second the summer starts to go away little by little, that's when football season starts. But that's actually when people start getting outdoors again, to start running and start cycling. So as an example, we're starting to see more people out there. She mentioned the training rides. That's big for us to start having those. But also just the football games. During September, we leveraged the campaign of Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. And we actually did a presentation during one of the games. On October 24th, the NFL is going to host its crucial catch game that it does for all the different teams, but specifically for Miami Dolphins, it's going to be on October 24th. And we're bringing a Firefighters Against Cancer initiative. They're going to take part during the game. We'll have different synergies that take place throughout the football season that allow us to build up the hype, establish a campaign, and just really leverage the platform of the organization to say, this is what the Miami Dolphins do for the cancer community. The University of Miami is following suit, doing similar things with their different pink initiatives. October Breast Cancer Awareness Month initiatives, their Team Hurricanes that's specifically for DCC. They just did a giving day yesterday. So a lot of different things going on in the South Florida community that's helping us not just really start strong so that we can finish strong. So the campaign itself, one thing that we push for hard, and I know we've said it a couple of times, is it's not just about the day. The partnerships, the participants, the fundraisers, the donors, the cancer itself, the stories, they're not just about that day. That's the day we bring it all together to truly honor and celebrate. But it's the other 364 days of the year that I think are the magic behind this event.
And you all work hard every minute, every hour of those 364 days that the event doesn't take place. So most definitely. I know you kind of alluded to a little bit more about what the foundation is going to do going further. So we don't have to dive into that a little bit more. I know we only have about like 20 minutes or so left. So we can leave it open for Q&A if you all want to, if that's okay with you. And maybe bring in Mark again to facilitate that a little bit further. But thank you both very much for sharing your story, sharing what you do, sharing how things have been going. I know it's been such a weird season, a weird 2 years for everyone. But again, I think a few notes to take from you all is being able to adapt and being able to say, okay, this is what we need to do and let's make it happen. And how can we make sure that our participants are feeling it, are feeling the love, not just participants, but also sponsors and partners. How can we make sure that everyone feels like the engagement is still there, even if they can't make it? So look up to you all from being able to adapt and making sure that the hybrid approach works for as long as we need it. I know in person is obviously the gold standard. It's what we want to get back to if we can, but just making sure you're inclusive and you are including as many people, not just within Florida, not just within Miami specifically too, but through other countries that have come in to play. So Australia, for instance, continents. Oh my gosh. So,
and you guys are a huge part of that. Like the title of client success manager, I have to imagine that's a lot of pressure. But you get a big notch on your belt from the donor drive perspective, from your perspective, just to turn around and say, this was a success. So you are as much earning of, you and donor drive are as much earning of the fact that we raised a record year during the pandemic and all that. So we'll give you slack for not being a Dolphins fan yet. But we do want to say, honestly, thank you for having us on here, and thank you for what you've done for the past, over a year. You've helped us do something that we couldn't do before. The way that donor drive, if I had to say one or two things that I just really changed the game for us and for the product, is the power of the messaging. The way that you can just target messaging where it's easing any marketing department. It's making it simpler to turn around and say, I need to tell this person this, segmented messaging, scheduled messaging, triggered messaging. All of that has just upped our game so significantly at such an affordable cost that it's really made fundraising easier, which is one of our top objectives. And it's done it in a way that it also makes it easier on the staff. We don't need an entire agency just to operate that. Like, that comes within donor drive, within the product. So I just wanted to mention that from a standpoint of just appreciation. I think one of the things that we noticed stood out.
Thank you. And you are an agile crew. So as long as we can make your lives a little bit easier, save you some time, create some efficiencies, that's what we want to help with. So thank you. Too kind.
All right.
Cool.
What do you got for us, Mark?
Oh. You all are off. You are good to go now. Thank you, Gladys and Javi. We definitely appreciate it. We'll have some obviously some questions that'll come in just after this. But just wanted to give a nod to a donor drive too. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for being such a valued client. I know we work with you on the peer-to-peer fundraising aspect of things, but I know there's been donation campaigns that we've worked with, which we've been able to spin up with you all. Obviously, the virtual fundraising we'll be working on too, but if there's ever any live streaming opportunities, that's where we'll be able to help you out a little bit further. And then also from a mobile app standpoint too, which you all have already been in the game of and have already been in talks with too. But just want to say thank you. We want to make sure that you all know that we're here for you, and then excited to keep the partnership going.
That's awesome. There are some questions coming in. And so the first one is, and again, anybody feel free to ask your questions in the Q&A or even just chat them out in the group chat there. But the first question was, can you talk more about your fundraising structure for the campaign?
Can I go for it?
Yeah.
Okay. So we have a registration and fundraising model. So participating in the 5K, for example, you'll have a tiered pricing. Starts at 25, goes up to 35, then jumps up to 50. So that's from the open of registration up until race day. So let's say there's 6 months of registration being open. We might divide it up in between 2 months apart. And then it'll be tiered pricing for the cycling as well. Opening up somewhere between $50, $75, going up to 100, and then maybe 125 or 150. I don't remember the exact prices per. And then fundraising minimums apply to each single entrant. So $250 for the 5K, $250 fundraising for the 15-mile ride, 35-mile ride is $500 in fundraising, 50-mile ride is $750 in fundraising minimum. The 100-mile ride is $1,000 fundraising minimum. And then we've got a few different levels above that. Our VIP level, we refer to it as heavy hitter. So that's a $3,000 fundraising minimum. Our All Pro is a $10,000 fundraising commitment. And then our Hall of Fame is 50 or 25? $25,000 fundraising. So that's the model that we use. We do allow fundraising to continue until 2 weeks after the event, and you are required to put a credit card on file should you not hit your required fundraising by that date.
Okay, and is that all handled through Donor Drive itself?
Kelsey personally handles it all.
Yeah.
I take care of everything. Yep.
That's perfect. Yeah, it's really handy when that's built into the platform, right? So that you take the credit card, it's like guaranteeing a rental car, right? And then if someone doesn't raise all their minimum, then it just figures out what the difference is and charges it. And it can't be any more fair than that. So yeah, well done.
A lot of our larger teams will take advantage of when the corporation just turns around and says, we're going to cover everyone's registration, and then we're going to maybe turn around and match or add donations or something like that. Those are things that we'll commonly see. So they might issue a corporate code that waives the individual's registration fee, and then they might contact us directly and say, for everyone that registers, please give them $100 credit to their account, and then they'll cut us a check directly and say. So we'll work with organizations to ensure that it's kind of a one-off process, based off of the organization's needs. It's pretty tedious and difficult for us, but we want to make sure that that organization gets the treatment that works best for what their corporate model is.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I also like the model that you have, and fully appreciate the different tiered pricing. As you get closer, it costs more, because that's just great, because the sooner someone registers, the more time you have communicate to them, and the more time you can help them fundraise, right? So the later they register, the less likely they're going to fundraise, at least in general. So I love that model. So well done. Kind of incentivize people to register earlier. Another question was, what does your bike community think about Strava, Zwift, sorry, or other third-party biking and fitness apps? Are you incorporating that into the challenge in any way, or planning to do that in the future?
Yep, so I can jump in a little bit. We definitely tried to incorporate it more this past year with COVID. We knew that it was definitely going to help us create a sense of community when we couldn't have our training rides in person. I feel like we we still continue to have those programs, and especially from like a fundraising component, when someone can link they're like live, I'm drawing a blank on the name now, but they're like live gaming, or they're live like fundraising through Donor Drive and that platform. So I feel like we're kind of letting that grow and be a little bit more natural, since we are able to kind of cultivate our community a little bit more in person this year, now that we're able to host training rides in person.
And then I think to give a shout out to another group, the Dempsey Challenge is phenomenal with Zwift and the things that they've done with Patrick Dempsey and just riding. We have not really successfully gone down those paths. One of the things that we were evaluating ourselves, we see value in them. Our community loves them. However, there's a unique element to who's participating in our event. Our event is not filled with incredible cyclists. Our event is actually filled with passionate, dedicated individuals, community-loving individuals, cancer committed, cancer focused, cancer fundraisers. So when you show up at our event, you do have your group of riders that are familiar with Garmin, that are on Strava, but a lot of them, they're not clipping in. We had somebody a couple of years ago, one of our top fundraisers, and not top fundraisers, but one of our significant fundraisers doing the 100-mile ride, that she showed up with a rented cruiser. Now, cruiser is one of those with the big seats and the tires, and so when we were evaluating everything, one of the things that we challenged ourselves to turn around and say, well, as athletes and as endurance events people, and like, we think to gravitate towards all those things, but we really took a page back and we said, what does our community know? If we talk about Garmin and Strava and all these things, we're above many of their heads, and we kind of don't check that first-timer friendly bucket. So are they successful platforms? 100%. Is it something that you should invest in? If your audience is in demand for it, knows it, and already uses it, then I think it's a great idea. For us, we were still in the let's figure out how much our audience knows about these platforms.
I like it. I'm surprised. Yeah, it's interesting, because usually with cycling events, you have such gearheads there, and I mean that in the most polite and nice way, because they're a great group, but they're really usually very passionate. So it's interesting to hear that you don't have that crowd as much as you have, the people really truly dedicated to the connection to the cause. So that's interesting.
There's a slogan that's said very often through all our announcers before every ride starts. Remember, it's a ride, not a race.
Right.
With that, great. And yeah, we ride as a pack. The roads are comfortably, closed to us for the groups themselves. We have police escorts, not hard closures, but we have police escorts. But we do not allow individuals to race, nor just take off or fall back. We try to stick it together, and so that's a little bit also of the background to as you referred to, the gearheads or the truly intense cyclists. We realize this experience is a little bit different. This is more of a social, get to know the person next to you, hear their story, and ride with a friend and family member type of experience.
Right. Okay. Kelsey, I think this is a question for you. What does the mobile app feature?
Ooh, that's a loaded question. So great question. It brings to life everything that a fundraiser would have on the desktop, just within their hands themselves. So they have access to their fundraising portal. They have access to see all their donations. They can email anyone that's actually donated to their campaign or their event, or their personal fundraising page, of course. They have access to being able to share their fundraising page via QR code, or even just sharing their link in general. There's also, which is really cool from maybe an organizational standpoint, is they have the ability to communicate from their sponsors through the feed that's available within the app. So participants now can get app notifications, and they can also get in-app feed notifications based on what their sponsors want to be sharing. So maybe it's a discount code for 10% off from Jersey Mike's, or what have you, whatever they want to share. Those messaging can be brought in through in-app notifications, but then also the feed as well. The feed's probably my favorite feature because we don't technically have that on the desktop version just yet. But yeah, I think that's probably the most notable feature. But just having everything you need to do within your fundraising portal at your fingertips is probably the ease of use from that. And then that's probably the biggest, I guess, the best and most notable feature that the app has at the moment, at least.
All right. Well, as we're doing a last call for questions, yeah, any final thoughts, Kelsey or anybody regarding, the campaign or in general?
No.
Well, we just want to say thank you, and to everybody out there, reach out to us if you need anything. My name's Javier J. Sanchez at dolphins.com. Happy to connect it with anybody with any questions or anything that we can be of service to. And for those of you that are fundraising for, different philanthropic causes, thanks for doing what you do. It means a lot to our community and our world. Not to sound cheesy or anything, but we know the sacrifice that you put in to do what you do. So keep it up.
That's a perfect note to end us on. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Totally agree.
Have a great day.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.